Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock, they're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite parts. So many movies we can choose, even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other, peace out and word to your mother. They're from the best decades, movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun, action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions free, come share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast.
We're going back to the future. Hello, everybody. It's a 30-something movie podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Reed, and I have with me. We often jump in the DeLorean, and we go back in time to do this month in whatever year we're in. But this is one of our 10th anniversary rewatches, and we are going back.
And
in
it's
time
about darn time. I think we should have a 10th, and an 11th, and a 12th, and a 13th. I think it should just be every year we review this movie.
Just do it every year.
I'm sorry if I jumped to deep thoughts. Did I jump to deep thoughts already?
No. Oh no, we're not even close to the deep thoughts yet.
Okay, because I'm saying did I inadvertently jump to the deep thoughts by coming in and saying I think we should review this movie every year?
No, you're fine.
Okay, good.
So I was going to ask, because I didn't get a chance to go back and take a look just yet. Whose was this one? Was this yours, Pat?
I believe so. I might not have been alone in that. I mean, maybe it was seconded or thirded or something.
Thirded.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's a Robert's Rules of Order term.
Is that not an official?
I don't think it is, but yeah. I don't know.
But I did. Yes, I put this one. I definitely voted for this one. I pushed for this one.
You did this one on the list. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. No, this was and I was trying to remember. I wanted to get an opportunity to go back and take a look at and listen to the episode that we did on this one all the way back then. But I did not get a chance to do that. It was, what was the first time we did? Because I know when we did Back to the Future Part 3 was 1990, so that's already almost 5 years ago.
And have we done Back to the Future as a part of an anniversary episode or something? Have we done it? Has it really been 10 years since we recorded this movie?
Yeah.
Pretty close,
Gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Because the original, I was trying to go back and find what number episode that one would have been. It was, let's see, episode number 23.
Yeah, it was
I was
early.
going to say, was it original format where we do 3 movies and everything like that?
No, this one was, because we kind of jumped back and forth between doing the doing multiple movies and then doing one movie per episode, and then we kind of we did a little jumping back and forth there. Ironically, though, the original episode number 23 from September 11th, 2015, was titled "Darth Vader from the Planet Vulcan Wants You to Listen to This."
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it was, at the time, we had kind of a bunch of different people that may have been part of the podcast, but this one was Pat, Bo, and John.
Wow.
So see, we're nothing if not consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, other people have used other words for us, but we are nothing if not consistent.
Dear God and other people. I get, yes.
So.
Yeah. What fun.
Here we are.
That's
once again, right where we belong.
You belong.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah.
I had so much fun watching it. Like, I watched it in a couple different sittings just because my schedule's been weird the last few days and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just, I don't know the last time I sat and watched this from start to finish.
Okay.
I mean, you're clicking around, you find it,
Yeah.
or someone else is watching it and you walk through the room or whatever it is. I can't remember the last time.
Yeah.
Start to finish.
Because we put it on in the background because my birthday this year in December was a time travel birthday.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Nice.
I'd asked everybody to bring something from a different decade. And we put it on in the background. So we didn't actually end up watching it. I watched it until people showed up for the party.
Mhm.
And then at that point, it was just kind of on in the background. But yeah, I think it's probably been a little bit since I've watched this one from start to finish.
Huh.
Yeah, right there with you.
So I feel like this was okay. So up until about 5 or 6 years ago or so, and maybe up until we did the pod, dear, I don't know. I feel like this was one that I would watch, not like every year,
Mhm.
but every couple of years I'd put it on. But then when I really break it down and say, okay, did I really watch it cover to cover? Probably not as much as I thought.
Mhm.
Then I introduced Dominic to it, and I had that experience of, oh my gosh, I forgot just how amazing this movie was.
Yeah.
And it really, this doesn't happen often, but he fell head over heels for this movie. He thought this thing was incredible. Daniela was still a little young yet, but he got into it. And we watched and ended up doing all three of them. Right. And we watched them all and all that kind of stuff. And then Daniela, I mean, old enough, probably not like maybe totally old enough, but it was a few years ago. And we started watching them with her, and we watched all three with her. And she loved it. So it is a family favorite. Like everyone loves Back to the Future. And we end up like pulling it out every so often and watching the whole thing. And we went to the musical when it came to Chicago because we just missed the opening in New York when we were in New York. So we went to the show when it was in Chicago. And yeah, we're pretty big. We've become pretty big Back to the Future fans. So I've started, watching it more, rewatching it with the kids, and
And that's
just-
I still want to see the stage play. I have not had a chance to see that yet, and I'd love to see the musical.
I
Yeah.
have some friends that have seen it and they loved it.
Yeah.
yeah, it's really really good. I really enjoy it. I love the songs that they do, incorporating all the different things in there, and they actually kind of use that to like tell a little bit of the story that wasn't able to be told in the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They kind of, so I don't want to do too much with the spoiler thing, but they add some stuff in that's like, oh, this was not part of the story before. This is really cool.
Yeah. I remember when I'd be curious to listen to the one we originally recorded this back in 2015, because if we recorded that September 11th of 2015, I'm sure that's probably either then or right around then. I might have watched it again, but that's probably the first time I watched it with the kids, because then in October, actually on October 21st, 2015, the day that they traveled to the future in Back to the Future 2, they re-released Back to the Future 2 in theaters, and I took John with me to go see it when they did that in the theaters for that one day. So, and I would not have taken him to go see 2 if we hadn't already watched 1. So my guess is when we did this in 2015 in September, my guess is that's probably the first time I introduced it to the family. And that's probably, because I don't know that as a family, I don't know that we've rewatched this again altogether.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The kids enjoyed it, but it's not one that, unlike your family that maybe does this as an annual thing, it's not one that the rest of the family, is like clamoring to see once a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's no, I hear you, and I don't know. I should ask. I wonder. You said Back to the Future 2 came to the theaters.
Yeah. They did they did at least a 1-day re-release on October 21st, 2015.
2015. And now I don't know if I would have brought Dominic to the theater. Have they put the original back in theaters at all, or?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to remember, man, when this thing comes to the big theater.
I mean, I feel like if they were going to, this year would be the 40th anniversary, so.
Right, it should be right now if they're gonna do
They're
it.
gonna do it. I'd look for it this summer.
Okay, I'm trying to think. I'm going to break the fourth wall of our pod. I'm going to ask my wife a question.
Oh,
Tammy, did we go see Back to the Future in the theater?
Yes, they saw one of them.
I think we saw one of them in the theater.
Okay.
I might have been because I remember it was one of those like, guys, we need to be on time for this. I don't care what we do. We are going to be on time for this movie. And that might have been when we introduced my daughter to it, was in the theater.
Okay. They might have been. It might have been like a summer, summer like rerun movie festival or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like as I'm talking this through, and Tammy's giving me the nod. Like we saw this in the theater and we brought the kids to it.
Okay.
And it was like, holy cow, seeing this on the big screen is just amazing.
Yeah.
So the funny part was when we were watching, when I was introducing Dominic to it, Daniela was out with Tammy doing something just, out of the house so Dominic and I could have movie time because she wasn't quite old enough for, Back to the Future at this point. So a number of years ago. And it was so funny because
Pat,
Pat,
are you saying she wasn't ready for it, but her kids are going to love it?
But her kids are going to love it. And, we're sitting there watching this thing and all of a sudden we hear the garage door open and in she come, they're coming and I'm like, and I hit pause and it was right at like the clock tower scene.
Oh yeah.
And like, it was right when the car's speeding down the way. And that's when I knew that Dominic was going to was really liking the movie. Cause I hit pause just as Doc's trying to rappel down the thing and the DeLorean's racing. And Dominic says, what? Wait, what? What? I'm just like, well, look, we're going to have to turn this off. Let your sister get in. And he's like, well, no, she can no, turn it back on. Like, how can you hit stop now? And that's what okay. He likes this movie. And so that was fun. And then Daniela came in and her eyes go through the back of her head. She's like, what is going on in this movie? Okay, well, when you're older, we'll watch this movie. And then I want to say that we went to the theater for that one. And that was finally when we saw it. And then we saw the second and the third. And I first watched second and third with Dominic. And it got done and he stopped and goes, when do we watch the fourth? I said, well, there's well,
there's a 2-season animated series you could pick up, but
there's the animated series, but he's like, what? These things are incredible. Why did they stop making them? Like he was just absolutely floored that, they didn't make more.
Yeah.
But it's a good fun.
Yeah.
Good fun.
Yeah. All right, let me do a quick rundown of the trivia for this one, the actors and everything else, and then we'll do a little quick overview of the plot with our 10 major moments for this one. Then we'll dive in a little bit more to why it's no secret why we love this one, but we'll get to there. So this one came out on July 3rd, 1985. So again, I would not be shocked to see this one back in theaters this summer with the 40th anniversary coming up. It was rated PG with a runtime of 1 hour, 56 minutes, directed by Robert Zemeckis, who did Forrest Gump and Castaway. Writers were Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale. Zemeckis did Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Flight. Gale did Interstate 60 and Used Cars. Producers were Bob Gale and Neil Canton. Bob Gale produced Trespass, 1941. Canton did The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai and Caddyshack 2. Alan Silvestri was the composer. He did The Predator and The Avengers. Cinematographer was Dean Cundy, who did Jurassic Park and Apollo 13. Editor Arthur Schmidt, who did Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, and The Rock. Production company is Amblin Entertainment and Universal Pictures. Budget was $19 million. Worldwide box office, $388.8 million. The irony that it's 88.
Yes.
The other fun thing about this one, and I'm sure somebody has got to have engineered this. Anybody want to take a wild stab in the dark at the percentage it gets on Flick Metrics?
88.
88.
Yeah.
I imagine someone probably tried to rig that so that always stays
Yeah.
88.
Oh yes, I cry. Fix.
Yeah, the fix is in.
That's got to be a fix because this movie is. If there was ever a 100% movie, this would be it.
All right, there you go. Michael J. Fox plays Marty McFly. He was in Teen Wolf and The Frighteners. Christopher Lloyd was Dr. Emmett Brown. He was in The Addams Family and Clue. Leah Thompson was Lorraine Baines McFly. She was in Howard the Duck and Some Kind of Wonderful. Crispin Glover was George McFly. He was in Willard and Alice in Wonderland, the 2010 version. Thomas F. Wilson played Biff Tannen. He was in April Fool's Day and Camp Nowhere. James Tolkien played Mr. Strickland. Bunch of slackers. He was in Top Gun, War Games, and Masters of the Universe. Can't forget that one. Mark McClure played Dave McFly, Marty's brother. He was the Jimmy Olsen in the original Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and he was.
I always wear a suit when I go to the office.
I know. He was also in Freaky Friday, the 1976 version. Wendy Jo Sperber, who passed in 2005, was Linda McFly. She was in I Want to Hold Your Hand and 1941. Claudia Wells was Jennifer Parker. She was in Fast Times and Still Waters Burn. Billy Zane was Match. He was in Titanic and The Phantom. J.J. Cohen was Skinhead. He was in 976 Evil and The Principal. And Casey Simasco was 3D, was in Stand By Me and Young Guns. A couple of quick trivia things here. I know we talked about this before, and I'm positive we talked about this on our original recording 10 years ago. Eric Stoltz was the original cast as Marty McFly, and after, I believe, 5 weeks of filming, they decided that the comedy was just not coming through, and so they needed to go grab somebody else. And originally, I'm pretty certain that they wanted Michael J. Fox for this role, but I did see that John Cusack had also auditioned for this. Johnny Depp had auditioned for this. One of the finalists who lost out to Eric Stoltz was C. Thomas Howell as a possibility as well. And one of the reasons why this was a bit of a stretch for Michael J. Fox was because of his filming schedule. He was shooting Family Ties during the day, and they were able to arrange it so that he could then shoot Back to the Future at night. So I believe I was reading somewhere that his filming schedule was he shot Family Ties during the day, and then from 6:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. he went and shot Back to the Future, and then slept for 5 hours, and then got up and started the whole thing all over again. And he was quoted in an interview. He was quoted as saying, "It was my dream to be in the film and television business, although I didn't know I'd be in them simultaneously." There is apparently still one scene with Eric Stoltz still in the film. You can't see his face, but it is Eric Stoltz who punches Biff at the diner.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh.
And then last thing I've got in terms of casting, do you guys watch The Office at all? The Office?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Jan, Melora Hardin, who played Jan, was originally the person who got the role for Marty's girlfriend, Jennifer. But then I also know her because she is the singer at the club that they go to in The Rocketeer.
Rocco?
Really, you've got to start reading the papers.
Yeah, they keep telling me that. I don't know.
We resubscribe to a newspaper, so I know who the Rockahoo is.
I subscribe to a digital newspaper.
Oh, okay.
Does that count?
Yeah, that counts. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Every little bit helps. So she originally got the role of Marty's girlfriend, Jennifer, but when they moved to replace Eric Stoltz with Michael J. Fox, they discovered that she was an inch taller than Michael J. Fox. I believe he's 5'4", and she was 5'5", and so they said, well, we can't have a girlfriend who's taller than the boyfriend, so, she's gone.
That's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that there are a lot of actors that are not very tall people. You know, Tom Cruise and people like that. They are not tall people. But I mean, 5'4", that's going to be kind of tough to find somebody to play a part that's going to be shorter than that. Maybe not in Hollywood, but.
And why?
And why does
I don't know. I don't want to make this about this, but it's like, who cares if the girl's taller than you?
Right. Like,
I mean,
why does it matter? Yeah.
It's funny you say that because that has always mattered in film, and I've never quite understood why either.
Yeah.
But it definitely has always been a thing in films.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mattered to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a really tall dude though, so I don't know.
Mm.
A couple of the other trivia things. The time machine originally was going to be a refrigerator, but then they decided probably not a good idea because then kids might lock themselves inside appliances.
Well,
However, boys and girls, if you are stuck in a nuclear blast test site, put your no.
Then?
I'm not even going to say that.
No.
But you will survive if you go into a refrigerator. The other one that I thought was kind of funny was I don't know if this is a direct quote from the Disney executives, but for years there were multiple studios that passed on the script for this one. I believe a little over 40 rejections in total, and one of them was Disney.
Wow.
Disney passed on this one, and Bob Gale claims that Disney told him, "Are you guys out of your minds? You can't make a movie like this here. This is Disney, and you're giving us a movie about incest." And fast forward to Disney now owning the rights to Empire Strikes Back.
well, what an overreaction.
Uh-huh. Isn't he an absolute dream? And then the original, they didn't like the title, Back to the Future, didn't understand it, so Universal Pictures had suggested that the name be changed to Spaceman from Pluto. Because that just rolls off the tongue.
But there's no spaceman. And he's not from Pluto.
Uh-huh.
You know, back maybe even 10 years ago when we recorded this, I would have been really stumped by that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can all the execs or third floor or administrator or whoever have those ideas and those thoughts and all that? But now sitting where I currently do, I'll quote Men in Black. Gentlemen, you are meeting all of the expectations that we have for government, or whatever. It's just kind of like, it's the same thing. It's the committee, meddling, management, admin. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just, oh my gosh, that I don't know whether to laugh or cringe or what, but that is funny to me. Back to the Future.
I thought you were going to quote Forrest. I thought you were going to quote Forrest Gump, but the mama says stupid is as stupid does.
Back to the Future doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So, spacemen from Pluto. Okay.
Maybe they didn't read the script enough to get to the point where he says, "We're going to send you back to the future." So they couldn't have that moment.
Mm-hmm.
He said it.
He said it. Uh-huh.
Maybe they didn't read far enough. Maybe that's the issue.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
I came here to lead, not to read. Art imitates life. All right.
Studio executives.
The Rainier Wolf, the President Wolfcastle of the real world.
There you go.
All right. In a quiet California town, Marty McFly never expected his life to change until his best friend, Doc Brown, built a time machine out of a DeLorean. But when a freak accident sends him back to 1955, Marty must ensure his parents fall in love or risk erasing his own existence. But with time running out and Biff Tannen standing in his way, Marty's only hope is 1.21 gigawatts and a bolt of lightning.
Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future, a Robert Zemeckis film. Marty leads an ordinary life.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley.
Yeah, well, history is going to change.
And 1985 is not his year. But Dr. Brown is about to change all that.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Now, he's trapped in the past.
It's got to be a dream.
About to meet
Chocolate.
his future father.
He's a baby tough.
Wow!
And he's making an impression on his mother.
He's an absolute dream. And he can sleep in my room.
Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events.
he's got to make his mother and father fall in love.
For crying out loud, I haven't even been born yet.
And only Dr. Brown can help him get back to the future.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear? Precisely.
Michael J. Fox,
Whoa, this is heavy.
Christopher Lloyd,
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Back to the Future.
So we got this one broken down into 10 major moments. Starting off with Marty McFly, a teenager in Hill Valley, struggles with his dysfunctional family. His father, George, is a coward, bullied by his supervisor, Biff Tannen, while his mother, Lorraine, is an unhappy alcoholic. Marty's dreams of being a musician are crushed when his band is rejected at an audition because they're just too darn loud. So he confides in his girlfriend, Jennifer, that he fears becoming like his parents despite his ambitions. Marty ends up meeting with his eccentric friend, Doc Brown, and was a little unsettling in the trailer for them to continually call him Dr. Brown.
How about it?
I was like, yeah, this is it. Well, originally in the script, I believe he was Professor Brown, and they changed it because they kept referring to him as Professor, and they're like, no, Dr. Brown, Doc Brown. It is just, it was a little weird to hear the voiceover. And his friend Dr. Brown is going to send him back 30 years. No, it's Doc. It's not Doctor, it's Doc.
Let's get this straight. Let's get it straight.
Doctor.
Doctor's in the hallway. Doc Brown at Twin Pines Mall, which I guess maybe when we re-record this, we'll have to say Lone Pines. But I don't know how the time thing works with podcast recordings.
Timey-wimey.
It's the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Indeed.
Yeah. Where Doc
Remember
unveils...
a garbage can.
Yeah. Where Doc unveils his greatest invention, a DeLorean, modified into a time machine, because if you're going to build a time machine, why not do it with some style? The car is powered by plutonium, as you do. I mean, I don't understand why that's such a big deal, which Doc obtained by tricking some Libyan terrorists, because that never turns out bad.
Yeah, that's definitely the recommendation I would make.
Before Doc can celebrate, the Libyans arrive and gun him down. In a panic, Marty jumps into the DeLorean and speeds away, accidentally hitting 88 miles per hour and triggering time travel. Marty then arrives in the past, confused by the unfamiliar 1950s setting, and he quickly realizes he has no plutonium to power the DeLorean, leaving him stranded. As he explores Hill Valley, he sees younger versions of his parents and is shocked to find that his father was already being bullied by Biff Tannen, even all the way back then. Marty accidentally alters history when he saves his father from being hit by a car because he's a peeping Tom. Instead of George meeting Lorraine under these circumstances, Marty becomes the focus of her attention. He wakes up in her bedroom and is horrified to find his teenage mother is infatuated with him. As Marty McFly, his future begins to unravel. He desperately seeks help from the only person who might believe him, Doc Brown. So Marty convinces
very convincing story, Future Boy.
Future Boy. Future Boy convinces the 1955 version of Doc Brown that he's from the future by telling him that Ronald Reagan is the president, Jerry Lewis is the vice president, Jane Wyman is the first lady, and Jack Benny is Secretary of the Treasury. After realizing they have no plutonium, Doc determines that the only possible power source strong enough to send Marty home is an upcoming lightning strike that they know will occur because they have the flyer that tells them when it's going to hit the Hill Valley Courthouse that Marty had
The way
picked up.
you said that, I can't help but hearing in my head, yes, we have no plutonium today.
There you go. So Marty shows Doc a flyer from the future confirming the exact time of the strike, giving them a chance to return him to 1985. As Marty spends more time in the 50s, his siblings begin to fade from a photo that he brought from the future. Doc explains that since Lorraine has fallen for Marty instead of George, their future children, including Marty himself, may never be born. And if things progress the way she wants, they will be highly deformed. Marty desperately... I'm just assuming. Marty desperately tries to push Lorraine towards George, but his father lacks confidence. Lorraine's infatuation only grows stronger, and Doc assumes that maybe Marty was adopted. Lorraine invites Marty to the school dance, and he hatches a bit of a plan. He is going to pretend to make some inappropriate advances towards her so that George can heroically intervene. However, Biff's gang intervenes, locking Marty in the trunk of a musician's car, while Biff takes his place in the car with Lorraine. When George arrives, he finds himself face to face with Biff, Summoning some courage and some backbone for the first time in his life, George punches Biff, knocking him out and winning Lorraine's heart. After being freed from the trunk, Marty sees that the dance is still in jeopardy, so he needs his parents to kiss at this dance. That is where they had their first kiss to ensure his future. So he takes over the band's guitarist playing Earth Angel while watching them closely. And as they finally do kiss, Marty's body stops fading from existence, and he feels everything is the way it should be. And he decides he's going to end the night by performing Johnny B. Good, shocking the crowd with a rock and roll sound that is a bit ahead of its time. With his future restored, Marty rushes to meet Doc at the courthouse for the lightning strike. Before leaving, he gives Doc a letter warning him about the terrorists in 1985, but Doc tears it up, fearing that it would alter history dangerously. As the storm approaches, Doc prepares the precise setup needed to channel the lightning bolt into the DeLorean. We get this whole dramatic scene where the tree falls down, knocks the cords out. He's got to put everything all back together. And then ultimately, just in time, the bolt strikes. Marty, who couldn't get the car started at one point, just zips right in there right at the last minute and sends Marty back to the future. Marty returns to 1985, but the DeLorean stalls, forcing him to run back to the mall. He watches in horror as past Marty arrives and sees Doc get shot again, now at the Lone Pine Mall. However, Doc sits up, revealing that he did read Marty's letter and wore a bulletproof vest. The next morning, Marty wakes up to a vastly improved life. His father is a successful author, his mother is happy, his siblings are thriving, and Biff is now an obedient employee. Just as he reunites with Jennifer, Doc arrives in the DeLorean, warning him about his future, and they take off for their next adventure, this time to 2015. They may not have enough road, but where they're going, they don't need roads. All right, that's the 10 major moments. Now it's time for some deeper thoughts. Let's go back in time for some deeper thoughts.
And now, Deep Thoughts.
I have an opinion on this matter.
Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think?
I like it a lot. Wow. It's very deep. Thank you.
All right. We've already started to talk a little bit about this one, but so I don't recall, if I'm going back to the first time I saw this one, I don't know that I recall the first time I saw this movie. I don't think it would have been in theaters. I would have been 4 at the time. And so I don't think my parents would have brought a 4-year-old to go see this in the theater. So my guess is it was at some point on TV. I feel like we had HBO for a stretch of time. So it was either on TV or we rented it or something like that. The time that I do remember seeing this in the theater was I remember going to see Back to the Future 2 in theaters. And I remember it kind of blowing my mind that they had already kind of referenced that there would be another sequel, and then you got the trailer for Back to the Future 3 at the end of Back to the Future 2.
Yeah.
And at the time, that seemed pretty crazy. Like, whoa, like, this is not normally how movies work. And then I feel like it was just, like a few months later than they released. I feel like Back to the Future 3 came out in the fall or winter of that year, and Back to the Future 2 was more the summer of that year that it came out. Yeah. So
that was one of the greatest experiences I ever had in a movie theater of all time.
Yeah.
Was Back to the Future 2 ends. All of a sudden we're in Back to the Future 3. They pan over and you're like, oh my God. Like when that hit and you're like, oh, well, what's this?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, a Western?
Yeah.
What?
Time travel Western?
Awesome. Yeah.
What?
Awesome.
It's like some kind of locomotive time machine.
I'm sorry, listening audience, you're going to have to get used to Pat just like saying awesome for this entire movie, because there is like nothing bad or wrong about any of the Back to the Future, anything.
Well, and as I've stated before, and I don't know, it was probably this movie, but there are a lot of movies I remember watching as a kid that were time travel related or time travel adjacent or something. Because I recall as a kid, I think my dad really liked the 1960 The Time Machine movie, the H.G. Wells adaptation. I remember watching that a lot as a kid. I remember watching Back to the Future. as a kid. As I got a little bit older, I think I probably chose to watch, or maybe a babysitter or my uncle or somebody chose to watch Bill and Ted, because I don't see myself picking up Bill and Ted as a little kid. And I don't know that I see that as being one my dad would have liked.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that one probably came a little bit later. But there's so many movies growing up as a kid that had the theme of time travel running through them. Like I remember Planet of the Apes, watching Planet of the Apes when I was a little kid. So between The Time Machine, Planet of the Apes, Back to the Future, eventually Bill and Ted,
Star Trek 4.
Star Trek 4, absolutely, Star Trek 4. Yeah, just a ton of time travel type movies. And I think that probably started my interest in like the whole idea of time travel is crazy and time travel is cool. And what happens if you mess up time? Like that, the idea of having like an alternate reality, didn't come in necessarily until, because we're just talking about erasing reality in this one, erased from existence. But in the Back to the Future 2, then we skew off into an alternate 1985. And then I think that probably blew my mind too. And I was like, wait, what? You can have alternate realities? Yeah. And so I think this
Welcome to the multiverse.
Right. And then you get shoved into the multiverse, and you just kind of, from there, the possibilities are literally endless. But yeah, I think this one probably would have been the start of my obsession, I would say, with time travel movies, and that as a story element that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. Like, I can't imagine this movie. I can't imagine what I know about, the job that Eric Stoltz had tried to do with this. And Eric Stoltz is a great actor, so I don't fault him for that. It just wasn't a good fit. I can't picture this movie without Michael J. Fox. Like, I have a hard time seeing this movie more serious than it ended up becoming.
Right.
But I don't know. Do you guys remember? Do you guys remember the first time you saw this?
It would have been, Blockbuster or probably HBO. Really, I don't think I could put an actual date on it, just because. Yeah. I think for all the reasons we've said, that's hard.
I saw it at a friend's house.
Okay.
And I mean, whenever it became available, I mean, I don't know if it was in 85 or it was pretty close to that. Because I was a pretty hardcore fan by the time the second movie came out. Like, I had the movie magazines talking about it. I bought the novel. I think I had read the novel before I saw the movie. I remember going to the whole thing. So I saw it pretty early on. And John, back to your point with Michael J. Fox. Yeah, it's hard to imagine anyone else in there. And that, again, just reiterating what you said, not a slight at all on Eric Stoltz by any stretch. But yeah, Michael J. Fox, that it's just one of those roles that, they seem perfect for each other. And you're right. The humor, the lightheartedness, but adventure, like there's an element of danger. And Michael J. Fox's physical comedy is just so amazing. I mean, he bounced around and moved around just energy. Like he's like a coiled spring, watching him move and watching him run and watching him fall and slide down that the little berm when he's watching, the Libyans, go after Doc Brown, and just all of that. The physical comedy is just not physical comedy though. The physical, watching him act. And like I said, I like watching a lot of action movies where the story is told by, physical movement, and he looks good. I just love watching him run and watching him, skateboard, and watching him jump over the bad guys and watching him run in and elbow people and then run through the door. And it's just fun watching him move.
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a philosophical question for this. Let's go deep thoughts. Let's go even deeper. Does it bother you at all? I was reading up some stuff on different forums that, for fans of Back to the Future. Does it bother you at all? And maybe take it out of the Back to the Future context. If you were Marty and you had done your time traveling and you came back and your family was different, even if they're better, your family is different, would you be okay with that? And I'm asking because in between the last time I watched this movie and watching this now, we had watched a show, and I don't want to spoil too much of it, but we had watched a show on Apple TV Plus called Dark Matter. Bo, did you end up watching that one at all?
I have not seen it yet, but I know I want to.
So I don't want to spoil too much about that one, but it does bring in the idea of alternate realities. And it brings in the concept of a character being trapped in other alternate realities and maybe not able to find their way back to their original reality. And so at some point they might even have to think about, well, do I just settle? Like, do I find one that's close and settle? Or is each of these different realities, it's not mine, so therefore I don't ever settle until I get back to my own. Does that ever, I was, after watching that show and then watching this again in between there, it made me think at the end. I'm like, okay, so for a teenage kid, you've got, dad 2.0, you've got mom 2.0, you've got siblings 2.0, you've got truck 3.0. Everything is better. Everything has worked out. Everything's coming up Millhouse for Marty in this. But how would you handle that? If you came back to a reality that was different, would you just settle and say, oh, cool, this is a lot better? Or would you be like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not, even with all their problems, that's not the mom and dad I left behind.
Right.
Where do you fall on that?
I don't. I don't think I can discuss my experiences with death with you until there's a proper frame of reference. Sorry, I'm pulling a quote. I'm sorry. I'm really.
Pat,
it's
are
late.
you trying to say that I would have to die for us to have a conversation?
Yes, doctor. You'll have to excuse me. I'm receiving various distress calls.
I don't doubt that you are.
God, I love hanging with you guys. No, I don't think I can answer that question because I don't have the experiences that Marty did. I mean,
well, so take it out of the Back to the Future context then. Let's say you went back in time and you went on this adventure and you did everything that Marty did, and then you came back and your family was different than what you left. How would you handle that?
Well, and again, it's hard for me to say because I haven't had that experience that he did. Now, you're saying take it out of the Back to the Future. Yeah, that would be, that would be hard. Like, I mean, that would be a struggle. That would be like, whoa, how do I address this? But again, I can't take it out of the Back to the Future reference because that's the reference that, that's what we're discussing here. And I think this movie doesn't necessarily, I mean, it explores time travel to some degree, but I almost feel like time travel, and this is going to sound like a crazy statement, but I don't feel like time travel and exploring it to that level within the frame of context of this movie, I don't think that's necessarily the focal point. And I'll explain that so everybody's like, what the heck is he talking about? When they first did this movie, I think the movie makers said the whole premise of this movie was him finding a yearbook picture of his dad and finding out he was student class president. Right? You guys know the story?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm sure everybody knows the story. But like that was the premise of the movie. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the time travel, the cool car, all the other stuff was, I won't say ancillary, but like the big point was what happens if you met your parents and in high school. And that's why I think this movie just has so much heart because he does, and he finds out how to help them. Do you know what I'm saying? So like that to me is different than, oh shoot, you went back in time and like, what was that old sci-fi thing where, if you step off the path, don't step off the path when you tour in the past or whatever, and the guy steps off the path and then suddenly humanity doesn't exist because he crushed a microbe or something like that.
Was that Sound of Thunder?
Yeah.
Is that a Bradbury story, I think?
Yes. And I think that's why I'm struggling with it, because the premise in this movie is a kid goes back and helps his parents, right? He helps his dad be a better guy. He helps his mom. He helps them get together. They gain confidence. It helps improve their life. And so when he comes back, it's not like, well, how the heck did this happen? Like he can kind of put two and two together, and Doc even references it, right? My dad knocked out Biff. He's never done that. He's never? Yeah, no. Yeah. Why? Nothing. It's probably nothing.
I love Doc's response.
Too late now.
Yeah, I love his whole response. He's just like shakes his head. He's like, no, never mind.
Yeah, and so I know I'm like totally just rambling here, but that's why I struggle to answer that question, because now if you asked me, hey, I go back and help my parents with something, and then I come forward in time and I'm seeing a change for the good, well, then I'm not going to feel as alienated or weirded out or like, oh crap, this isn't working out, like this is bad, as if I went back in time and inadvertently did something and maybe caused the reverse, right? Or caused, like, I don't recognize these people, right? Like what is going on? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the story of Back to the Future is a different kind of story because Marty was actively involved in bettering his parents. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes much sense, but that's what makes that question hard. So yeah, if I came forward, suddenly family doesn't recognize me and like, what in the heck is going on? Yeah, like that would be a heck of an adjustment. But if I was back doing something to right a wrong or, prevent something from happening that did or whatever, then I think the change would be more palatable and I could live with it, because it's like, yeah, I went back and I bettered them, and now this is the result of that. I'm living, this is a better life for me.
I'm going to take what you said. I'm going to punch it up just a little bit because you said it in two different sentences, and I want to put it into one sentence for you and say, so what you're saying...
God, thank you.
No. So what you're saying is that Marty was leaping through time to put right what once went wrong.
It went wrong. Yep. That's what I heard.
Okay. I heard you say... No. I heard you say almost that exact same phrase, but in like 2 or 3 different sentences. So I'm like, oh, please, just do the quantum leap thing. Just do the quantum leap thing.
I hinted at it, but I didn't quite get there.
You did, yeah. No, so I think you answered the question. I mean,
okay, good.
Initially you rejected the question, but then I think you answered the question by saying that he got to know a different side of his parents by going back in time that he never would have interacted with in his current time. And so it doesn't matter as much that they're different from the parents he left when he returns to 1985, because that's the continuation of the parents he got to know when he went back in time.
Yeah.
Now, what I think would be weirder is his brother and sister, like having to deal with a different brother and sister, because he didn't go back in time and interact with his brother and sister when they were younger. So I guess that would be the one thing, because he's done something to actively, improve the lives of his mother and father, and he met them and he got to know them better as mother and father. I think it would be weird to have a brother and sister that you grew up with your entire life come back and they are totally different people. That I think would be weird. I think that would be the weird part that I would probably have trouble with. Is I wouldn't, if I was Marty and I had done what I did over the course of the movie, and then I came back and I'm like, oh, okay, well, here's the logical extension of what I did when I was in the 50s, is here's the mom and dad that I met. I met the best version of themselves that they started to develop when I knew them back in 1955. That makes sense. But I think what would throw me off would be like, whoa, wait a minute. This is, what are their names? Dave and Linda, Marty's siblings. Like this, this is weird. I didn't have any direct influence over these people, so this is freaking me out a little bit.
Yeah.
And to the point of the question, I don't know what you do about it. Like you go back, you do your thing, you come back, your parents are different, and part of it, I guess, is acceptable because they're better than they were. But if they were worse than they were when you left them, do you hop back in the DeLorean, go back and try again?
Yeah.
I mean, do you pull the Dr. Samuel Beckett and just start leaping back until you can get things at least the way that they were? Even if not, you're not going to improve things. At least get it back to the way things were. If you made things worse.
Yeah. I think the thing with your siblings, again, if we're using the movie as a frame of reference, the siblings you don't get to know them as three-dimensional. Oh, okay, well, here's the good, here's the bad. Okay, maybe they're working a dead-end job, or maybe, the one sister's kind of gossip girlish kind of thing and all that deal. But you get to see the good in him too. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you just don't see it. Like, did Marty and his brother ever hang out? Like, even, did his sister and him, I mean, was she kind of like taking care of him, like being the big sister to him? And, you don't get to see those things. So all you get to see is, okay, they're just kind of like dead enders.
Yeah.
And now they're not. And I think it's the fact that that's that two-dimensional thing. It makes, when using the movie as your, inspiration to answer this question, it makes it hard to answer that accurately.
And the movie really doesn't give us time really to kind of digest what has happened to Marty, because I think when you really think about it, like when you look at what's happening in 1985, I think the entire trilogy is taking place over the course of 24 hours.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Because he does his whole thing, and then he comes back, and then the next morning he's there with his, upgraded parents and upgraded truck and downgraded Biff and all this other stuff. And then immediately Doc shows up, takes him to 2015, and then they end up going through the whole Back to the Future 2. Then they end up going back into 1885, and then by then you go all the way back to 1985 again, and Jennifer is still asleep on the porch.
Yep.
So you've done the entire trilogy in 1985. You've done the entire trilogy in one day.
Right.
Yeah. So you don't really have time to kind of sit.
Of course they can do it all in one day. Their spirit. I'm sorry, wrong movie.
That's okay. It's a little time travel there too.
What was the Star Trek episode that featured that? I think the guy that played Clarence Boddicker was this guy, and he was constantly trying to change time to get it back to where his daughter would survive, or there was some like.
There was a Voyager episode with
Voyager?
Yeah, it
was.
It was the one where he had like the lock of hair.
Yeah, and then it was just like they always had a percentage. Okay, how close are we to success? Well, this time frame only had 70%. Okay, well then we got to change these other things, and it really brought up what you were saying is you can't go back and change one thing and it's all good. You're going to change one thing, and it might be all good for this one thing, but there's going to be 10 things that are going to be different.
Yeah, is that was that Kurtwood Smith that was in that episode?
The Voyager episode, yeah, it was Kurtwood Smith, and I can't remember the name of the species that he was. But yeah, he was trying because something had happened to his wife or his daughter or both.
Wasn't it the Year of Hell episodes?
Maybe.
Wasn't he a member of the Krenim?
Krenim, yes.
Yeah.
As soon as I knew, you said it, yes, he was a Krenim for sure.
Yeah, he was. I pulled it up here real fast. He was Anarax of the Krenim Imperium.
There we go.
Okay.
Also heavily featured in the Star Trek Online MMORPG game.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Nice.
but it's an interesting concept to that's explored, I think. The one that you brought up and that's featured in that Voyager episode, and you try to change one thing, but like there's a whole raft of changes that occur in its place.
Right.
And back to the quantum leap thing, what is right?
Right.
Like, because if not that I'm saying Doc has done this, but Doc could have gone back and changed any number of things before.
Right.
And so knowing what is right, I think, is the hardest part in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
There's a version of Doc that's just sitting in the corner rocking back and forth because he's watched Marty die like 73 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Watched him just erased from history in front of his face.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotta love time paradoxes. Make me feel good.
And what about Biff? Like, I know he's the villain, but I mean, things don't end up so well for him. That's if you're a Biff fan, that's kind of sad.
Agreed.
Now, granted, he was not the best of people, but
he needed a moment of humility.
That's true. That's true. He needed to end up in the back of a manure cart.
Yeah, but
I hate manure.
He was able to, turn his talents into a detailing business, and
it's true. It's true.
Now, Biff, don't want you cheating me on the wax. Second coat, Mr. McFly. I mean, I just started the second coat.
Yeah. I do. I had put together. I had photoshopped my own little kind of sarcastic Mother's Day card with a picture of Biff on the front of it that just says, "Say hi to your mom for me."
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll send that to my mom. I'll be like, "Happy Mother's Day."
That's fun. That's fun. That actor was in Legends of Tomorrow.
Was he really?
And
I didn't get super far into Legends. I think I got the first season and a half, maybe.
Oh, if I may, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Please continue your thought.
No,
I'm sorry.
I just said I need to go back to it because I only got about a season and a half into it, and then I started watching other things.
It's a cool premise for season 1 and 2, and when they hit season 3, they suddenly are like, "This is what we can do with this show," and they lean in to being quirky, silly, goofy, off the wall. And this show just rockets forward. It's I still have yet to see the final season, but yeah, right in that third I mean, that when that show was firing on all cylinders, it was amazing.
Yeah,
it really locked in, and he plays a role in there, and it's fun to see that actor as not like Biff Tannen, and spoilers for Legends of Tomorrow, but there's a couple things when they'll go back to it, and there's this one part when he looks, "Hey, butthead," and it's like, oh my gosh, that's awesome, But no, he's okay. So he's awesome in Legends of Tomorrow, and my gosh, yeah. If you just take it a season at a time and all that, but once it gets going, it's a good bit of business.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to go back to it. All right. Before we do 3 questions, is there anything else? Any letters we want to leave behind for this movie to warn them about something, or
this? Well, I don't want to hog it, but like I'll go off for the next hours about this movie. I almost would say that this to me is like the perfect movie, and I think you guys are going to laugh. And if you go back, I might have even said this like when we first recorded it, but like this movie to me seems to be like perfectly balanced with all the pieces in it. And, it's funny because you can see deleted scenes and alternate takes. And, sometimes it's like, yeah, put all the deleted scenes in there and let me see it. And then when you find the ones that are in there, they're really cool. It's fun seeing these scenes. but they trimmed this movie down so it's like just, and not minimalist, but it's like it is perfectly balanced, not too much, not too little, not too over the top. And I compare it to this motorcycle that came out in the 90s called the Honda Fireblade. And the guy that designed it, I think his name was Tadeo Baba. I'm probably totally mispronouncing the name, but his thing was to design a motorcycle that was totally balanced. And there were other sport bikes that were like more powerful, but this one had the exact right amount of power, the exact brake frame handling, like everything was totally balanced. And it was, that's kind of what I feel like with this movie. And it's funny, when you were going through the major moments, I was thinking through those scenes, the music is phenomenal, right? The soundtrack is great. The blend of the orchestral stuff with the pop tunes, the Huey Lewis tunes are great. The fact that they had Huey Lewis be the guy auditioning him was fantastic.
That was outstanding.
I mean, that's great. The guy that was playing guitar in his band, the Pinheads, that was Marty's guitar teacher, or Michael J. Fox's guitar teacher, which is great. All the attention to the little details. You know, like you hear, I think there's like a Toyota commercial, and I think maybe it wouldn't have been a Toyota truck.
It was.
No, he wouldn't have been. Was it? It was.
Yeah.
And then it was like save the clock tower, and she hands him a flyer, which then has the information that he needs to do the other thing, and, you know, to let Doc know when the lightning bolt is going to strike, you know, all these little details. The news report about the plutonium being stolen, that's what Doc uses to power the car. And, you know, all the little pieces, all the little threads get put together, right? And I already mentioned the soundtrack, but you know, some of these things, like when they need the movie to get serious, they can get it serious. You know, they start that little drum, that bum 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 psh, bum 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 psh, bum 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 psh, you know, like, and it's like, oh, this is getting real now. And you know, like when they're sitting there and Biff is going to break his dad's arm, right? And they start playing, and I've broken it down and listened. There's this real fast string stuff that's, you know, it's this thing going on when Biff is like laughing sinisterly. I want to say it's little quotes of the Dies Irae theme. It's like the little Dies Iraes in there that, you know, obviously add to the doom and gloom and the sinister kind of feel of it. The way when things aren't going well, just the way the sound changes, the audio changes, and it's like, oh man, that's super scary. I got to be honest. You were talking about that scene where Marty's playing Earth Angel, and then his dad gets kind of pushed away by, you know, that one bully, and then all of a sudden he has to turn around and shove the guy. Excuse me, and then suddenly Marty's back and he's standing up. That is an incredible scene. Yeah. That is like a perfect scene because they're playing Earth Angel, which what a great, you know, fun old love song. And they're playing Earth Angel, and suddenly he's struggling, and then all of a sudden he falls down, and you start hearing that it's almost like a heartbeat, that dum 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 dum, and you're like, oh man, this isn't right, like this isn't good. And suddenly he starts calling out, you know, George, but like the sound is different, it's like echoey. And he, you know, they got that effect where he stares through his hand, which is fun. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, he's really disappearing and this isn't good. And then all of a sudden George comes and he pushes the guy away, and they have that cadenza, dun, 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 dun. You know, you're building up. He finally kisses her, and that goes right back to the song, right at the big high point with the final chorus. And suddenly he's standing up, and then the Marvin Berry's like, you know, singing, and he's like, yeah, all right, you know. And I mean, it's just all the good things. It is so well balanced, well structured.
Hands off.
I know. And it's so, the scene itself is rhythmic, and they're like, every scene is set out like that. You can't help but watch and enjoy it. When the storm arrives, you know, and Doc's like, the storm, man, your goose pimples go up, right? But then it's right into the humor. Bum, bum, bum. Dang, where's the kid? Bum, bum, bum. dang, where's the kid? You know, he's looking at all his different watches. Oh man, it just, and you've already talked about that set piece where the car's racing down the street. Doc's climbing the hot dog tower. He rappels down the thing, hanging on the wires, grabs him, plugs him. You know, all that stuff is just so well thought out and put together. Like the action sequences are just great. I mean, we didn't even get into talking about, you know, the escape where he grabs the scooter and turns it into a skateboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, I mean, my name is Darth Vader from Planet Vulcan, right? I mean, it's like all of that stuff. It's just I mean, honestly, this is like, for me, it needs to be a Back to the Future minute, because we could literally go minute by minute and just finding awesome things to talk about. And I'm not full disclosure, I'm not really that interesting to listen to, because all I'm going to do is just go, that's awesome. And that's awesome, because it is. I mean, this movie has it all. It's just awesome.
Yeah, I was going to pull up a little bit of the music. This is a dangerous, this one in particular, one of the very last parts when he's trying to get the car started.
Mm-hmm.
This is dangerous to listen to when you're driving. and I will say, there are times where when the music kind of hits that little beat for a second, if I'm riding with the kids and, you know, want to maybe just be a teeny tiny little bit reckless, I will just press a little bit more on the accelerator, just each time the music changes.
Reckless behind the wheel?
No. Well, not usually, especially not when I'm teaching my children to drive, but...
Never.
Yeah. But, I mean, this part... It just kind of keeps building and building, and I'll skip ahead just a little bit. And it's like this whole thing, it keeps doing the, okay, we're gonna build up to the highest point of this. We're gonna build up to this big crescendo. Oh, no, wait, no, we're bringing it back. Now we're gonna build it up a little bit. We're gonna build it. No, we're bringing it back. Yeah, try playing that when you're riding in the car and not driving fast.
I just,
yeah.
It's just, I mean, listen to that music. I mean, like, that just screams adventure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, this
it's amazing
is
you still have a license after listening to that while you drive.
When I think of Alan Silvestri, this may be my favorite Alan Silvestri soundtrack.
Right.
Easily. All right. Well, speaking of time, I think it's time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right. Question number 1. If you were playing at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, what song would you play from the future? And the years you have available to you are from 1956 until today.
Wow.
19 what until today?
1956. So I'm going 1 year into their future. From 1956 to today, if you were up on stage and you had the ability to play whatever instrument you need to play this song, what song would you bring and play for them? What song are they not going to get but their kids are going to love? My joking answer to this with the kids tonight was Baby Got Back, because I think that could be hilarious. My other joking answer, I'm like, if you really want to melt their brains, then you play Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire.
There you go.
I'm just going to tell you what the rest of the century is going to be about. Just hold on a second. And
I was going to say like Werewolves of London.
That could be a good one. Part of me is thinking you pull out something like synth heavy from the 80s, or part of me earlier was like, maybe you do something from ZZ Top. Maybe you pull like some 80s ZZ Top stuff like Sharp Dressed Man or something like that. Then part of me was like, okay, what is that when I think of just growing up as a kid and I think of like watching MTV, what is the first piece of music that pops into my head? And it's Van Halen's Jump.
There you go.
So I think I play Van Halen's Jump for them.
Good one.
Well, we're kind of cycling back to what they did in the movie.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of ironic? Like basically just do like 80s rock up on stage, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where I was. I was like, yeah, maybe a little James Brown or something. But then it was like, yeah, I think just, yeah, I think like an 80s tune. Little Def Leppard.
I mean, do you scare them with something like The Offspring from the 90s?
Holy moly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you really want to melt their brains, I guess you bring out some guar.
There you go.
Oh, God. Yeah, okay.
Nirvana.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
You guys might not be ready for this yet, but your kids, they might actually not be ready either.
Yeah. Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Trust me, in the future, no one knows what he's saying then either. It's fine.
Yeah, don't worry about the lyrics. There's this guy named Seal. It's not going to make any sense what his lyrics are. Just, it's a kiss from a rose. Just
go with it.
Take it for what it is.
Yeah.
All right, so we're pretty well settled on it's probably something from the 80s.
Yeah, for me, yeah.
So.
All right. Question number 2: if you could meet one of your relatives when they were in high school, who would you choose?
Any of my grandparents, and then you choose.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to meet them.
That was mine too. I picked my grandpa on my dad's side, just because I would be curious to have met him, because obviously by the time I knew him, he was quite a bit older. And I mean, he had a very interesting life around the time that he would have been in high school. He never went to high school. He finished 8th grade and then kind of had to go out on his own and do his own thing, and then eventually did a bunch of different jobs and was a farmer and owned a hardware store and all kinds of other stuff. But I would have been really interested to have met him. He always seemed to have really good stories, so I would have been interested to have met him during that time.
Cool. Was he the one that was a traveling traveling preacher?
Yes. Yeah, when he was like
Okay.
13, 14 years old. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Sharon had mentioned that one of them would have been her dad because not when he was in high school, but I think he was a bit of a troublemaker when he was in high school. But like we were talking at dinner tonight that he had some crazy jobs that he did too. Like he worked underground for like NORAD missile defense for a stretch of time. And, he had all these different kind of other odd jobs from time to time, in Chicago and some other places. And so, I feel like people like that have like this breadth of experience from having done a bunch of different, sometimes maybe weird and unconnected things in their life seem like they might be the most interesting people to meet. But yeah, that would be my grandpa on my dad's side. That would be mine.
Right on.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
A tough one. Probably one of my uncles. I don't know which one off the top of my head. I have a feeling that would be very, very interesting.
Any particular reason or just
they're all so different now that sometimes you wonder how they grew up in the same house. Now that I think about it, my Uncle Rick, my mom's oldest brother, because he was her oldest brother, he long moved away by the time I was, even old enough to really know. So we didn't see him all that much growing up. When we did, it was always great. He was always fun and everything. But I'm just curious, what was he like when he was younger? Yeah.
All right, and because we are the 30-something movie podcast, we cannot get away from including some kind of a food question. What's your favorite diner food?
My favorite what?
Diner food.
Well, see, this is, as usual with the food questions, this is very hard for me because it depends on if what we're talking about, early morning or late night diner, because there's a difference in your diners.
I went with the breakfast diner, and I chose the biscuits and gravy.
Well, see, there you go.
Yeah.
Breakfast diner, I'm picturing like...
If it's late night, it's like a burger and a milkshake.
Right. Well, late night, yeah, it's a cheeseburger deluxe and mozzarella sticks, right?
Yeah.
Breakfast diner, it's scrambled eggs, greasy hash browns, 2 sausage links, and rye toast. It's
but not that you've thought about this.
No, I mean, come on. Ooh, you know what? Breakfast diner, you got to add a little corned beef hash. Diner corned beef hash, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. I am a fan of all things like fried potatoes. So yeah, any hash brown and all that kind of stuff is just good.
Nice big basket of French fries.
Yeah.
That's the danger of having these questions, because then I just get hungry.
Right. And the last thing we need to be is hungry at 10:45.
Right. I mean, I had fajitas for dinner. I should be fine.
Should is the operative word there.
Should.
But have I had biscuits and gravy tonight? No, I have not.
No, and that's really the problem.
And should I have had biscuits and gravy? Why not?
Well, yeah, I mean, what?
So yes, to go back to your earlier point, should. Yes, I should. Yes, have some.
Have some. That's exactly right.
Yes, Louis Tully is my diet guru.
Yeah.
There you go.
Weight Watchers? No. Atkins diet? No. I'm on the Tully diet.
Got Louis.
I'm on the Tully diet.
There you go.
What should I eat? Yes, have some. All right. Well, I think we've answered all the questions that we can answer with Back to the Future. I think we've reiterated just how much of an amazing, fun movie this is. We love this movie. We love the music. We love the car. We love everything about all this. It's an amazing movie.
Hey, Chuck, it's your cousin, Marvin Barry, your cousin. Hey, you know that new sound you're looking for? Listen to this.
It's such a fun, and it was almost kind of hard containing ourselves to just talking about the first one too, because it
is
invariably I want to go off and I want to be like, oh yeah, when they get to 2 they do this, and then when they get to 3 they do this, and ZZ Top shows up in 3 and that's awesome, and so it was almost even a little bit tough to just contain it to let's just talk about Back to the Future, even though Back to the Future is my favorite of the entire trilogy, but it's just there's so much really like one story that it is kind of tough to just talk about the first one.
We'll let our podcast stand as a love letter to it because that's
true.
It's a wonderful movie.
So between our episode number 23 from all the way back then to this is episode 575, we'll have two love letters to Back to the Future. And hopefully Back to the Future doesn't tear those up. That maybe it tapes them back together lovingly and reads them and wears the Kevlar vest in the future.
Right.
Back to the Future just figured, what the heck?
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, we're in the middle of our teenager month, the month of March. Our Patreon this time is Real Genius, another one from 85. Patreon short is Angus from 1995. We have done so far Mallrats and Clueless. This episode was Back to the Future for our 10th anniversary rewatch. Dangerous Minds is our next regular episode, and we're going to end the month with Empire Records because it's we must. It's Rex Manning Day, so we have to.
Yeah,
just have to do it.
It's actually not Rex Manning Day, but if I could coincided with actual Rex Manning Day, that could have been fun. But
yes,
that takes a level of preparation and planning that I'm maybe, frankly, not willing to do. I don't know. Maybe someday.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Bo. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
It was good to come back to this one 10 years later and talk about it again.
Yes.
Agreed.
All right. Everybody, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. Go watch this one again. And if for some reason you end up in a time machine and you end up going back in time, just don't step on any butterflies. I think there might be some other advice that goes along with that, but just whatever you do, don't step. You can do whatever you want. I mean, you can kill people. You can, do whatever you want. Just don't step on butterflies. If we've learned anything from time travel.
Yes.
Or Endgame. I feel like Avengers Endgame told us that we can just throw all these Back to the Future rules out the window.
Right. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and stop you right there. Are you describing Back to the Future, or are you describing time travel based on Back to the Future? No, I'm not. Okay, good, because it kind of sounded like you were just now.
Yes. All right. Everybody be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we'll see you back here next time for Dangerous Minds.
Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock, they're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite part. So many movies we can choose, even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast, some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math, it's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other. From the best decades, movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun. Action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions free. Come share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast.
All right, guys. I think it's time to make like a tree and get out of here.
Make like a tree and leave.
Leave. It's leave, you moron. Sound like a fool when you say it wrong.